So you've heard the term "Where's Wally?" Tonight we are saying, "Where is Charles Tarbey?" Good evening, Charles.
Good evening. How you doing?
Yeah, going well, thank you. Where are you, sir?
I'm up on the Gold Coast, actually. We have a Century 21 conference on, and we've had a very interesting day with speakers, mostly around technology and the different disruptions that are occurring, not just for real estate agents, but for landlords, for tenants. That's quite an interesting process that's going on. Well, every industry's been copying it, of course, but we're certainly right in there at the moment.
So what have you learnt today? What's making the most amount of impact when it comes to disruption in real estate?
Yeah, I think what the problem is with real estate, I always brought it down to four processes in a transaction, and I think from a real estate industry point of view, we've still been dealing with most of it from a manual perspective. I mean, you today I checked into the hotel and I went through the process of giving them my credit card and giving them my license and waiting and signing a piece of paper, and there's processes like that organisations like Uber that has been the most dominant one or the most promoted one. They removed a lot of those processes, and they've got your profile. They understand you, and the moment you walk in the door, it's almost as though they know you. And with Uber, they've got your money, and you've been profiled by other drivers. So even the driver knows what to expect when you get into their car. And I think it's those processes that, from a real estate perspective, that we don't do, and in an automated way, anywhere near where that should be. And I mean that's what we're working on and have been for quite some time. And we're not far off launching different processes or automated processes ourselves. But that's really what it's all about.
And how do you see that impacting the lives of landlords and tenants?
Oh, well, most definitely with landlords and tenants, particularly with a company that I've become chairman of recently called Property Connect, and it's all about a live offer. There are different ways on eBay of going out there and buying property and bidding for it. And what I don't want to do is to have a landlord or a tenant bidding for a property, because I don't think that is a fair process. So what we've created is an algorithm where a landlord can sit behind the scenes and tick a number of variations. For instance, the landlord might prefer 3 months rent paid in advance because they need extra funds for their loan, or they might prefer a long-term lease. So it's not just about how much rent a tenant will pay. And so this program or this application allows a landlord and a tenant through the real estate agent, a pre-qualified tenant, the opportunity to bid on a rental property, but over a number of different reasons or different points, and making the process transparent, which is what I like, because a lot of complaints you get out there right now are, the tenant or the buyer, we would have paid more, we would have done this, or you didn't favour us because of our background, or we've got a dog, or things of that nature. And so if a government department says, well, we've had a complaint, we can pull up the information, you can see the entire transparent bidding process around a number of different parts of an algorithm. And it means that there's no such thing as, it's the agent's fault, it's a landlord's fault, or you're discriminating. And I think those processes allow people, and especially too, if a person's already been through this process, when they're looking at another property, they're already pre-qualified. There's already a history. So you can see, again, whether or not you have to go down through those slow, drawn-out steps of taking an application, approving the application, and then getting back to everybody to say, we're ready to go.
All right, so you're looking at a situation where if you are in the business of finding a property to rent, let's say residential, then you'd like to get it to a point where this database maintains the information that is submitted by the tenant, no matter whether they are successful on that property. If they're not, it would roll to the next?
That's correct. And if they don't get a property, they find something else, and something new comes up in 4 or 5 months that might suit them, well, of course, they'll be notified immediately that property's become available. And because they've already gone through the process of being pre-qualified, then they're in a position to immediately start transacting through the real estate agent with the landlord.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Because it's a lot of paperwork for everybody, especially new tenants. You've got to gather references, and sometimes you may not have any. It's that kind of cart before the horse thing, chicken or the egg. If you haven't had a residency before as a tenant, then how do you get some kind of credibility with a landlord?
Absolutely, and this is a publicly Australian Stock Exchange publicly listed company too, by the way. It's called PCH. But I think the most important part of this process is it's still the same process. You still need to be qualified as a tenant. The agent still needs to vet you and go through that process. That's part of what we have to do. But it's done in an automated, professional manner, and that's the difference. And as I say, it makes it completely transparent. And so today we've been learning about the gentleman from realestate.com, Steve Carroll, who was on the telephone with us last week.
Yep.
Steve got one of our agents on stage, and he said, that had a child, said, "How old's your child?" He said, well, he's 8 months of age. He said, well, by the time he's ready to learn to drive, I will say to you that it'll be a driverless car, and you won't have to take him out to get his L's. And in addition to that, if I'm wrong, I'll give you free advertising on realestate.com for the rest of your career.
That's a pretty good offer.
So there's a very serious movement towards automation and refining processes more than anything else.
And I guess you've got to find that balance, don't you, where it's not all completely automated, because real estate and the success of transactions is connecting people.
There is a human factor, and it's a very big part of it. And look, this is why I think the industry itself, it's not like an industry that can be changed overnight, because when the internet came in, they said, oh, that's the end of the real estate agent. Well, of course, it just gave the real estate agent a bigger platform to promote themselves on. I think people still like to deal with people. When it comes to a transaction that large, that's the big difference. You need to find somebody that you feel comfortable in dealing with and have them act on your behalf. Even though conveyancing, for instance, is becoming an automated process, you still need to know that there are professional people in the background vetting the variety of the plethora of documents that come through that need somebody's professional eye.
Yeah. It's great to have Charles Tarbey here tonight. 13 12 83. If you've got a call for him, he can help you out. He's dialed in tonight from the Century 21 National Conference. Some of the more interesting keynote speakers, Charles.
Well, we have here's an interesting one that people I know will enjoy. We've got a lot of people on digital marketing. Obviously, we've got Tim Lawless. Tim's going to go through his perceptions of the future of the market. I've got two very senior gentlemen, David Mayer and ex-CEO, David's from CoreLogic, ex-CEO of CoreLogic, Graham Murabito. I have them on stage, and I'm going to be questioning them along with the audience questions about, again, the way in which these processes and customer service are going. But one little speaker I have, not any of my team even know. I'm the only person that knows. I organised his flight, I organised his accommodation, I organised his pickup from the airport straight to the venue, because he didn't want anybody to know. And he's got nothing to do with real estate, nothing to do with techniques and prospecting and scripts and dialogue. He's a guy that's travelled the planet for 30 years.
Do you now want to play guessing game with you, Charles?
I'm sorry. His name's Jason Edwards, and he's a National Geographic's photographer.
Oh, wow.
And he's a fantastic presenter from what I've seen of all of his material on television. I just thought it would be inspirational for the team to see somebody who's followed his dream for 30 years.
I think I'm wrong here, but something in my mind says, was he the photographer that was in the movie The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
You know what? He could be, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, great film.
If you Google him, you'll see all of it, and he's got this really down to earth nature about him, and I just love some of his work. And I just thought it would be great to have somebody such as Jason rather than somebody talking about real estate.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, Charles, auction clearance rate over the weekend. What did you make of it?
Look, it's going to always be a quiet weekend given the fact it's a long weekend, but still, the results were quite significant. Sydney only had 257, I think it was, auctions, and it came in at 71.3, which is, I guess, expected from that perspective. But Melbourne just keeps bounding along, 77.1, and they had twice as many auctions as Sydney. So the clearance rate this time last year was 67.2% as an average, but it's 71.8%. Now, we've got to keep in mind that the weekends last year, I think it was because we had a leap year, are exactly the same as this year.
Yeah.
So there's it was a Queen's birthday weekend this time last year. So every figure we've matched since the start of this year has been exactly the same matching as last year, and we're performing better than last year.
You're keeping your eye on vacancy rates, I know.
Yes,
What's popped out at you this week? What's leaping
and
out?
I'm really, really thrilled to say that Perth itself came backwards. It's been up high in those areas. It's always been a nerve-wracking situation, but they dropped down to 8.26 for the vacancy rates, and Sydney came in at 0.95, slightly up from last week.
Okay.
But Victoria stayed at 1.18. It gave us an average of 3.47, which is lower than this time last week. Very encouraging for Perth. Very encouraging for Perth.
And Charles, just finally, I've got to let you go back to your conference. Are you seeing any rent movements that are worth reporting on?
Yeah, look, it was negative again. That's 2 weeks in a row that it's come back. It came back negative 0.7% from where it was. But, overall, since 24 months ago, it's up 1.92%. Nothing major. But when you see so many investment properties coming on the market, you expect the rents to drop. But they're still pretty stable. So, I guess everybody's happy with that.
Charles, enjoy the conference. Before you go, I just want to promote the fact that Nila Sweeney, is the managing editor of Property Market Insider. She's joining us very soon, talking about commercial property.
Oh, wonderful.
What are your thoughts on commercial property right now? Is it a good time to get in?
It's bounded in the last 36 months, more so the last 24 months, particularly in Sydney, particularly in Strata. Some of the prices have gone up. I can almost see you from personal experience. I can tell you something that I had that was for sale at $3 million 24 months ago would fetch over $5 million today.
Gee, okay.
But dangerous if you're a landlord. If you're not the tenant yourself, dangerous because if you don't get a tenant, it can be a very expensive event.
All right, Charles Tarbey, thank you. Great to have you on board. We'll have you for the full hour next week. Enjoy that speakers conference. All right, mate. All the very best.
Take care. Bye.
There are some great advantages in being the world's largest real estate company. For a start, your Century 21 local office uses the best technology and knowledge base in the world. Combined with the fact that each office is independently owned and operated, your local Century 21 agent knows your city, your suburb, your town and your street. It also means Century 21 agents can offer a huge range of resources and experience, including information from over 300 offices around the country. It's no surprise, Century 21 is the fastest growing real estate brand in Australia. Buying, selling or looking for a new home to rent? Contact your local Century 21 office and find out why they really are smarter, bolder, faster. Visit century21.com.au.
Reduce your mortgage, then holiday in Japan. For a chance to win a $10,000 trip to Japan, plus $10,000 off your home, be the first correct caller with the code word on 1300 385 859. Helen Wong's Tours. You can't go wrong with Helen Wong.
Yeah, it's a Monday night. Nick Bennett with you. 13 12 83 is our number. Or you can flick through an email by clicking on feedback at talkinglifestyle.com.au if we can help you out. Still ahead, around the grounds, Century 21 Thornlie's Josh Brockhurst joins us to check out that suburb, and also Peter Brack from Turramurra in Sydney. And then later, Brendan Condon, who's the Managing Director of the Cape, building Victoria's most sustainable housing development. I like that. Let's talk about commercial, though, first. With some parts of the resi property market slowing down, the returns available for commercial real estate are proving very popular for investors. For example, well over $10 billion of investment in office space is transacted every year in Australia. Nila Sweeney is the managing editor of propertymarketinsider.com.au, an online publisher of independent property market info. And she's on board tonight to talk about the pros and cons of investing in commercial property. Hi, Nila.
Oh, hi, Nick. How are you?
Going well, thank you. Look, let's start out with a simple question for those that, are grappling with what commercial property is. What is it? How is it different to residential?
Yeah, commercial properties are basically real estate class that are zoned for commercial purposes, like a place where you conduct business. In other words, you can't live on it, whereas in residential, of course, are properties where people live.
Yeah, okay. Look, for years we've seen these things called shop tops where they've got flats up top above a shop. So is that still entirely zoned commercial?
Oh, there are mixed zoning, of course. There are, like you said, shops where, some parts of it can be, lived on. And those are called mixed zone properties. So they're both zoned residential as well as commercial. So there's a residential part you can live in, but in the commercial side of the property is only for the business.
When it comes to investment, is mixed zoning advantageous?
It really depends on, what you're trying to achieve. Generally, as a rule, you want a property that has appeal to a broad range of tenants. In a mixed zone property, of course, it can be limited to just, for example, shops, like those corner shops, like the candy bars and so on, where you can have a room at the back. But if you're seriously considering commercial property, I would look for a property that has a broader appeal. For example, industrial, where you can have a variety of tenants. It can be used as a warehouse. It can be used as a showroom, or even just a place for workshops. So those are the things that I would look for when investing in commercial as a whole.
Look, we hear a lot about retailing moving more and more online. What does that mean for those who've perhaps bought a shop in a traditional high street, if you like?
Yeah, I mean, retail commercial properties are always more sensitive to the economic movements. During an economic downturn, obviously people don't want to spend so much. And the first sector that suffer are commercial sectors. So with the additional pressure coming from online businesses, of course, they're going to struggle. But, this is just a broad swipe. There are still a lot of smaller retailers that are doing very well in suburban areas, even in major cities. So I guess it's a matter of really choosing the location and the property right for you.
Nila, what are the advantages of investing in commercial property?
Well, the main advantages of commercial properties is basically the higher yield. If you're looking for cash flow, it is a very good addition, especially if you're very negatively geared in your residential property. You can get as high as 9%, sometimes even 10% gross rental yield on your commercial property. When you compare that to residential, you'd be lucky to get 3.5%. So it's a very, very attractive benefit of investing in commercial property. The other thing is the tenants are paying for the rates, the council rates, the water rates, and also sometimes even the upkeep of the property. So you have, lower ongoing costs associated.
Okay, so perhaps a better rental return and less costs, as you say, or costs that are sometimes picked up by the tenant. When it comes to capital gain, what's it like compared to residential?
Yeah, the thing is with when valuing commercial against residential, they are completely different. The residential properties are valued based on the comparable sales. So, when a property is sold that is similar to your property, then the valuer will base that against all other range of factors. But when it comes to commercial property, the valuation is mostly dependent on the rent that you're getting, the rental income. So, the tenancy of your commercial property is what gets you the capital gains. So, if it's not tenanted, then you'll be in trouble.
Okay. What are the main differences when you're looking for a commercial property rather than a residential one? It's a different process. I'm sure quite a few people now are familiar with shopping for residential, but not so with commercial. What are the real acute differences?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to choosing, trying to pick the right commercial property, I would still look for location. You can't, you have to be investing, you have to be looking in prime locations. This just to make sure that you don't have that much vacancies. It has to be near amenities, transportation, near highways, and also near big businesses already in the area. So you want to surround yourself with other businesses already. The other thing is that I would choose a property that is already tenanted. I wouldn't buy any commercial property that doesn't have any tenant on it because, well, first of all, you could hardly get a loan without a tenant in your commercial property. So make sure that you have a tenant there already. And also, I would look for development potential. For example, for example, in St. Leonard's, a lot of those smaller offices were turned into residential properties now. So I would look for, those type of properties.
All right, so maybe one that's got possibility of change because of different zoning scenarios?
Yes.
All right, cool. Are there any downsides to watch out for with commercial? I mean, you've mentioned a couple there. Don't buy a place which is empty generally. Anything else we should be aware of? I mean, for example, would you buy a heritage building?
I mean, there's always a challenge to heritage building, of course. I mean, commercial property in general, broadly speaking, is already higher risk compared to residential property. So a heritage building is, again, an added risk, on top of the already existing risk. So personally, I probably will look for a little bit more mainstream, a little, something that has broader appeal that can easily, if I need to redevelop, can easily go through the council.
Nila, just finally, are there any tax advantages in being able to hold commercial property in your self-managed super fund?
Yeah, absolutely. When you hold property in your super, your rental income is only taxed 15%. Compared to, when you have residential property, it's taxed based on your tax rate. Yeah. So, and when you reach pension age, 65 years and 6 months, after July 1st, then tax-free.
Good to know. Nila Sweeney, thank you so much. We can find out more about your wonderful work at propertymarketinsider.com.au. Thanks for your time, Nila. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Property Fast Track, it is Nick Bennett with you as we go around the grounds in just a moment, and stay with us to have a listen up for some fascinating stuff coming out of Victoria right now. I love this idea, potentially having power bills of just $500 a year if your house has been built properly. We'll find out how to do that before 8 o'clock tonight. Nick Bennett tonight. In the next hour, Trevor Long is here as we talk technology, and he's taking your calls on 13 12 83. If you're looking to sell your home, buy your next one, or find a reliable expert to manage your investment property, drop Property Fast Track a line and they'll help you achieve your real estate goals. That's propertyfasttrack.century21.com.au. Let's go around the grounds now with Century 21's extensive national network, and it's always very good to see what's happening in those local spots. We get a snapshot at this time of night every week of a particular region and learn a whole lot more about it. Let's start off with Josh Brockhurst from C21 in Thornlie, which is in Western Australia. G'day, Josh.
G'day, how you doing?
Good, mate. Nice to talk to a sand groper. Tell us about your area. Where exactly are you?
Look, we're about 20 minutes drive southeast of Perth.
Yeah. And what's unique about your spot?
Look, it's probably one of those sort of bridging areas where it's just affordable enough to be pretty close to the city, but it's not, too far away. And, the ones that are a bit further away, obviously a little bit cheaper, but it's pretty close proximity to rail and transport, yeah.
Now, you've got a great road system there, and you mentioned rail as well. In general, how far are people from Perth prepared to drive? What are they comfortable with when it comes to commuting distance each day?
Look, I think that it's within an hour. I think they're relatively comfortable, but, 30 minutes, I'd say, for most people is about the right sort of, time frame that they're going to be comfortable.
All right. And what are the reasons why you think people should buy in your area?
Look, it's an area that's probably come down about 20% over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Median price now sitting at just above 400,000. It's got relatively good schools, and it's quite a family area, first home buyers. So it's really a mixture of families, first home buyers, and a few investors that are scattered through there. Although that has slowed off for the last probably 18 months because rentals have come back about $80 a week.
Okay.
Yep.
Does that indicate that maybe if you are an investor, it's a good time to buy because things are a bit low?
100%. Yeah, my thoughts would be, the next 6 months or so, I think we're really seeing it sort of, the sharp drop is starting to become a bit of a slide, and it's starting to plateau. So I would think within the next 6 months we'll see the bottom, and then we should be seeing growth, 2018, 2019 for sure.
Okay, that's good to hear. Earlier tonight, Charles Tarbey revealed that he was quite satisfied. He's really pleased to see vacancy rates in Western Australia, Perth in particular, on a decline. It's dropping, which is great news for you guys.
Oh, exactly right.
Let's talk about stock and price homes units. You've mentioned $400K for a house. What about for a unit?
Look, a unit, there's not that many in the suburb that I'm in, but look, around that 250,000 to 300 for, your unit, I suppose, for your 2x1.
Okay. And how do you predict the outlook for 2017? What's it looking like for growth?
Negative.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit negative, and then I would see growth will happen 2018. There's a lot of mining. So obviously, WA is very controlled by mining, and the mining has been quite slow the last few years, but there's a lot of big contracts starting again mid-2018, so I think that'll only give reason for growth, and I think 2009 will be quite strong.
Okay, Josh, you mentioned it's a great suburb, a great area for families and a smattering of investors. With prices being a bit down in the west, are you seeing folks come across from the east? Investors out of Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, say?
Yeah, look, we're only just starting to see investors starting to come over because, Melbourne, Sydney, like everything's just getting priced out of reach of a lot of people. So we are seeing a lot of people now buying over from over east to, they realise that we're very close to the bottom. So, we're just starting to notice those investors starting to come in. Yeah, the rents are a little bit low right now, but prices are low. So this is where, between now and the next 6 months, it's going to be the buy time.
Hey, Josh Brockhurst, thanks for your time tonight. Appreciate it, mate.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time.
There's a wrap on Thornlie, Century 21 in Western Australia. Let's try Peter Brack now, who's at C21 Turramurra in Sydney. Evening, Peter.
How are you?
Yeah, going well. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty well, actually. Up here at the National Conference, having a great time.
Ah, you're there too.
Yes.
Great. So you've left the office in safe hands. Tell us about your area. What's special about Turramurra?
Oh, look, it's a great spot. I'm biased. I was born there and I still live there now. But it's about 20 k's northwest of the Sydney CBD, part of an area called the Upper North Shore, and very family orientated. Lots of parks, lots of bushland, great schools. Really, really nice area. Okay,
good rail system there.
Fantastic. Exactly 37 minutes from Turramurra Station to the Sydney CBD on an all-stops train.
Oh, that's
one
good.
of the major reasons why people look at buying in the area.
Okay. So, look, when people are shopping, they have a bit of a list of wants, desires, maybe public transport, maybe schools, maybe access to good hospitals. Does Turramurra provide plenty of that?
Look, we've actually got the Upper North Shore has got some fantastic schools. It is one of the major drivers for people in the area. It's not just the private schools. We've got some very, very prestigious private schools like Knox Grammar, Abbottsley, Ravenswood, Barker College. But the public schools are also very, very good. You literally can't find a bad school in the area, and that's obviously important for people with children.
Look, it's very obvious that the Sydney property market's been bubbling in a pretty outrageous kind of fashion now for 7 or 8 years. How have things changed in that area in that time?
Look, in 7 or 8 years, the increase has been dramatic, and there are outer-lying suburbs like St Ives Chase, West Pymble, South Turramurra, that were traditionally, I hate to say it, but almost the ugly stepsisters of the North Shore.
Yeah.
They've had phenomenal growth in the order of 70-80% growth over the last 5 years, because they've been catching up to the areas that were a little bit closer to the train stations, and people being priced out of those areas, and they're just looking at the outer suburbs. But median price in the area for a typical home is still $1.9 to $2 million.
Gee, okay. And what's it when it comes to units? What kind of money are we paying for a 2 or 3 bedroom unit?
Around the $860, $870 mark.
Okay.
There's a smattering of older units, and then a lot of newer developments along the main roads. So obviously the newer units, the 2 and 3 bedrooms with the 2 bathrooms are selling for a lot more than the older units with the 1 bathrooms, but it's still very popular for investors and also for people wanting to get into the area without having to buy a house.
And what are the vacancy rates like?
Very low. very, very low. We find that we rent things very quickly. Within 2 to 3 weeks, rentals are gone.
Let's say I want a family home, 3-4 bedrooms. What would I need to pay for that?
For a rental?
For a rental.
Look, depending on the condition of the home, an older 3 to 4 bedroom home, perhaps with a swimming pool, you'd be looking at around $800-900 a week. For a nice quality home, renovated kitchen, renovated bathroom, swimming pool, you could be looking at anything from $1,200 to $1,500 a week.
Yeah.
And then you've got the executive residences, which are sort of $1,800 to $2,000 a week plus.
And finally, the outlook for 2017. What's your growth forecast?
Look, it's remaining relatively strong. There's still, despite what we're hearing, there's still a lot of buyer demand out there. There's not a lot of property available on the market. It's keeping the prices up. So I'd absolutely be saying that we're going to grow for the rest of 2017. And I honestly don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to collapse. It will certainly stabilise, but I don't think it's going to go backwards.
Peter Brack, thank you so much. We'll let you get back to the Century 21 National Conference. Enjoy your night.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
That's a pleasure, mate. Nick Bennett with you tonight. And if there's any info that has kind of piqued your interest tonight, you can drop Charles Tarbey a note via propertyfasttrack.century21.com.au. That's where you'll get him on email. Now, like night follows day, power prices will rise. Sadly, it's a fact. Last week, we found out that AGL customers in New South Wales alone are facing a 16% rise in power prices next financial year. Now, that roughly works out at $300, which is a lot. And what are you going to do? Somehow figure out a way to drastically reduce your electricity usage? I mean, my kids already kind of struggle with me saying, turn the power off. You can't refuse to pay your bill. It's just a big issue. So part of that problem is the way we build houses, or the way we used to. Horribly inefficient, poorly designed, old school builds. And then you've got the new school, a modern design ethos, which obsesses about efficiency and ultra-sustainability. The Cape is Victoria's most sustainable housing development site. It's about 90 minutes southeast of Melbourne, and some of the homes built at the Cape are so energy efficient, they could cost as little as $3 a year to run. That's $3. Cuss, you pay that for a coffee, right? Brendan Condon is the MD of the Cape, and he's on board tonight. Hello, Brendan.
Good evening, how are you?
Yeah, going great, thanks. I'm encouraged by this news. I could run my house for the cost of a cup of coffee weekly. How's that?
Well, look, it all comes down to how you design the home. So at the Cape, we're designing homes that are averaging over 8-star energy efficient.
Yeah. So
that means that they're using around 40% of the energy of a 6-star home and around 20% of the energy of a state average home, which are coming in sort of 3 to 4-star.
Mm.
And it's just the way that we build them and also the way that we outfit them. So there are wonderful new home operating systems, heating and cooling systems that are ultra efficient, and then solar. And the cost of all these things are coming down, and it's just absolutely flipping the economics of housing.
So how much more expensive is it to build, say, an 8-star or a 9-star one compared to a 6-star home?
Okay, so we're building 220 of these houses. And the first thing we did was we did a huge amount of training with our builders, and we buddied them up with some of Australia's best energy efficiency experts and good designers. So we train them how to do this at least cost. And it's surprisingly little. If you get everything correct in terms of correct orientation, get your block shape and size right, and then you get your shading and your glazing and your insulation correct. It can actually be, we're finding to jump from 6 to 8 stars costing less than $10,000.
Wow. Okay, so when you're saying orientation, ultimately I guess you'd want to face a fair bit of the home north or east to capture as much sun as possible?
Yeah, that's right. So what you do is you have a lot of nice glazing facing north, and then what that does is that invites the winter sun into the living areas when the sun's low in the sky, so it comes right through into the home. We have thermal mass, so polished concrete floors and other forms of thermal mass, and that warms up during the day, and then overnight that re-releases the heat. So it keeps the home really stable during the winter, and then we have insulation to hold that warmth in the home. And then in the summer it's the reverse. You have glazing, you have shading structures that block out the hot summer sun, and that thermal mass acts like a wine cellar or a cool store.
Yep.
So just by getting all those basics right, you can build a home that sits between 18 and 25 degrees year-round with minimal heating and cooling. So that's the 8-star energy efficiency. And then we go further. We outfit the homes with ultra-efficient heating and cooling and hot water systems. So there are now Dakin 7-star split systems and sand and heat pumps. Now, so efficient. They're for every unit of electricity that they use, they generate around 5 units of heat and put that into your home in winter or put it into your hot water. So incredibly efficient. And then the cost of solar, you were just talking about the cost of energy going north. Well, the cost of solar in the last 10 years has come down by 90%. So then putting on some decent solar, if you do that combination of things, we're finding that the sweet spot for actually zeroing your bills is around 8. It's around 8-star energy efficiency with the efficient fit out, and then around 5.5 kilowatts of solar, and you can actually zero your energy bills.
Okay, so you got a 5.5 kilowatt solar panel set up on your roof. Are you also putting in batteries to store it on site?
So we're zeroing the bills without batteries. Batteries are only going to improve the equation. We're waiting for batteries to really hit their sweet spot. We're sort of tracking all these, new exciting technologies that are driving down the cost of living.
Yeah,
batteries we think are going to hit their sweet spot in around 2020 or between 2020 and 2022. So the homes are ideally suited to buddy up with battery banks. One of our residents has done it. Others will follow as they become more economic.
Okay, so you've run us through what can be done with an 8 to 9-star scenario. What about when we get to a 10-star? Because one of those homes you've built has become Victoria's first 10-star rated home. How does it differ?
So the difference between an 8.5-star home and a 10-star is not huge.
Yeah.
10-star just has a couple of extra features. So, it's got all the basics of excellent insulation, glazing, orientation, thermal mass, but they've also gone a little bit extra. They're using some a bit of higher tech material. They're using something called phase change material.
Yeah.
So it's like a gel that sits in these sort of bubble wrap pods in the roof. And what happens? It's called smart mass. When the temperature reaches around 28 degrees, it turns from a solid into a liquid, and it absorbs all that heat. It draws all that heat in, and it has an effect of cooling the home. And then when the house is actually dropping in temperature, it re-solidifies and it releases heat. So there's some interesting, more high-tech features in the 10-star. And the 10-star is that thermally efficient. It's hit the theoretical maximum, so it sort of self-regulates. It doesn't need any mechanical heating or cooling at all.
So, Brendan, I reckon that most people can relate to how much it costs to build a house per square metre.
Yep.
What do you allocate for these scenarios?
All right, so we've done a huge amount of work in terms of driving down costs to make it cost-effective for people. We're building 3-bedroom places with ensuite and study for between $330,000 and $350,000. So they're fully fitted out with all the gear. They're coming in at around $2,000 a square metre or a little under.
Yeah.
And that's using really quality boutique builders in regional Victoria. And I guess what the interesting thing we're saying is that we think the whole industry can use the same sort of techniques, and we think if the volume builders employed the same design techniques and used their economy of scale purchasing power, they'd actually achieve even better per square metre rates than we do. So, we think it's really time the industry stepped up and started building more energy efficient housing, because in Victoria, the average cost to run a home now is about $3,000 a year, and it's just going north. We're going to see more and more price rises. Whereas the houses we're building are costing zero, and in 10 years they'll cost zero, whereas who knows what the cost of a conventional home will be by then.
You must be getting great support from local council and government. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, look, we've had the Minister for Energy and Climate Change come down and visit. We're getting a lot of interest in the development industry. We're open sourcing our house designs as well. So we're really, we've got a great bunch of builders and designers and ethical investors behind the project. And, we're actually giving away these house designs as they're being developed. So if people want to hit the website, liveatthecape.com.au, they can actually get a link to download the plans. And, we're getting a lot of interest across the industry and community.
Love what you're doing, mate. I would I would just give my eye tooth to have one of these houses. Thanks so much for your time, Brendan Condon, the Managing Director of the Cape, and we appreciate your time on Property Fast Track. Thanks, mate.